What's up guys, my name is Dave with Amari Productions and today we are talking budgets. Specifically, what should you budget for wedding videography? Can you spend X and what will that get you, or do you need to go up to Y? We're going to dive into all of that and more, and yes, we are going to be using real dollar amounts. So let's dive in. Okay, so the first thing that I need to touch on, this is a big disclaimer. I do not speak for every vendor, and there are absolutely going to be vendors in every one of these price ranges that do not fit the definition I'm going to give you. But in general, the following holds true. What we're gonna do is split this up into 3 buckets. It's an infinite scale of prices and what you'll get, but we can really break it up into kind of 3 distinct groups. You've got your budget videographers, you've got your average videographers, and you've got your high-end, if you will. And I guarantee you, those things do not mean what you think they mean. So let's dive in. I already said let's dive in earlier in the film. So let's get started. The first group, the budget group, if you will. Now I'm gonna give you some numbers, but you have to recognize that these are SoCal numbers. And even within SoCal, between San Diego and LA, there's some variance. And between SoCal and NorCal, there's actually pretty large variance. But here in the Southern California market for videography, I would consider budget videography anything that's $2,500 or less for a 2-shooter, 8 hours of coverage, highlight film, base package. Now some videographers' base package might be a little bit different in they might have 1 shooter and an assistant, or only 1 shooter. They might have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, whatever, but generally 2 shooters, 8 hours, and a highlight film. $2,500 or less would be the budget market. Now what does that actually mean? Generally, videographers in this price range are going to have 1 to 3 years experience. Of course, there are exceptions to that rule. Maybe they've shot for a long time for another company and they just started theirs, but generally you're looking at 1 to 3 years of experience. And if a videographer has more experience, if their company is older than 1 to 3 years and they're still charging $2,500 or less, that is something that I would want to follow up on. That is not trash talking. That is not disqualify them by any means. I would just be curious why they're still in that price range. Because generally speaking, this does not apply to everyone, but generally speaking, a videographer that's built up a couple years of experience, made some connections in the industry, and it has a healthy portfolio and a healthy amount of past clients to refer them to new clients, is going to get out of that budget price range. Is going to get into the more average price range. So if someone's $2,500 and they've been around for a while, I'd just be curious. I just want to maybe chat with them about that in your correspondence of kind of what their history is, and yeah, get a little bit more information on that. Also, at that budget range, you are probably going to find a ton of options. The distribution curve of videographers is not uniform. It's not some budget, some high end, and a lot in the middle. It's a lot of budget, maybe even a little bit more of average, and then a sharp drop, but a long tail of high end. So 1 to 3 years of experience, but like, what does that mean for you on the day of? What does that mean in your final product? With that, at that price point, with that experience level, there are going to be situations that they're unfamiliar with. There are going to be situations that they're going to have to think on their feet and solve problems that they've never seen before at a wedding. And I'm saying this from experience. I'm thinking back to the first several years really of our company. It was probably 4 or 5 years before I got to a point where it was like very rare for me to see something that I hadn't seen before. Now, can you find a diamond in the rough, so to speak? Can you find someone that's destined to be a high-end videographer, but you book them early on in their career when their prices are still really low and you get a great find? Absolutely, everybody starts somewhere, but I promise you, the talented videographers and photographers too, most of this can apply to photography as well, by the way. The talented videographers are getting out of that price range quickly. So if this is your budget, what does this mean for you? Now, obviously, as you can probably tell, our first recommendation is to re-look at your budget. how much are you spending on your photographer? If it's more on your photographer, if you're spending $4,000 on your photographer and $2,000 on your videographer, you need to up your videography budget, because you're going to book a very good photographer and then you're going to book an amateur videographer, and that they're not going to jive well. So you need to get those budgets to match. If your whole wedding budget is $4,000, $5,000, $8,000, $10,000, I don't know, and you really are making the most of your videography budget and it's $2,000 or $1,200 or whatever, what do? A lot of homework. Do your homework, and even at that price point, you can find somebody that will get you what you need. You can find somebody that'll get you a decent video. What does your homework look like? You're gonna want to see the biggest thing, really this is true for any videographer, but especially for these younger ones. It doesn't take that many attempts to be able to get 3 weddings that the day went by pretty easily, went by well, the couple was easy, the lighting was easy, the story kind of wrote itself, and you can make a good film. It doesn't take that many attempts to find 1 to 3 of those. So I'd want to see, I'd ask to see their whole portfolio and be able to pick your own films to watch out of their portfolio and see how are they reacting, how are they adjusting to difficult lighting, to stories that aren't as easily written, aren't as easily edited. And then ask for references. Try to figure out who they've worked with, other vendors that they've worked with, or past couples that they've worked with, and try to touch base with them and say, hey, looking at this videographer and I saw that you worked with them at a wedding a couple months ago. I was just curious kind of what your experience was with them on the day. If you do that homework, you can find somebody that's going to deliver, that will deliver for you on your wedding day. But if you can stretch your budget a little bit, let's talk about bucket number 2 and what that's going to get you. Bucket number 2 is kind of your average wedding videographer. And I don't mean that in like a backhanded compliment kind of way that's kind of derogatory, like, oh, you're wholly average. Like, no, this is just where the majority of the market, the midpoint of our market sits, and it's kind of right around $2,900 in the SoCal market. And what you're gonna find in that price range, you're gonna find companies with about 3 to 5 years of experience. So they've definitely seen some things, they've polished their craft, they've been able to do well enough to get up out of the budget range, out of the range where you're just trying to win over anybody that finds you by having the lower prices. They've been able to get into the average market range price. With videographers at this price range, you're probably going to see things you like, you're gonna see things you don't. Again, I definitely would want to see more than just their top samples on their website. I'd want to find a way, I want to ask them if we could go straight to their Vimeo or their YouTube and pick our own samples to watch. Or another great way of asking it is, hey, have you filmed at my venue? Can I see the weddings that you've done at my venue? Because even us, having done almost 1,000 weddings, most venues, we only have like 2, 3, 4 videos total at that venue. So if you ask to see the weddings at the venue, you're gonna get every wedding that we've shot at that venue, whether or not it's one of our top samples or one that's 6 years old. But yeah, with the company at 2,900, I would expect their sample page to have good samples on them. Again, things I like, things I don't. I might not like the movement, I might not like the composition and the exposure. There's gonna be a lot of little things that I'm like, nah, that could be better, but generally it's gonna be fine. That's how I will feel about it personally as I'm reviewing their work. Now, how are these videographers going to move through your day? How are they going to film throughout your day? How are they going to tell your story? I would expect a videographer at this price range to be a good documentarian. Maybe they're starting to find their legs as an artisan, as a creative, but definitely are a good documentarian. So at this price range, they're not going to miss any of your important events. They might not capture them in full because they might be trying to like get some creative stuff, and then you say, well, where's the rest of my vows? And they say, oh, I was moving around. Like little things like that just, it's hard to see in a sample, but a more experienced videographer is going to make sure to get 100% of the important things 100% of the time. And so between the average and the high end, it's really that developed and perfected critical thinking. Now, when I say that they are being good documentarians and are starting maybe to develop their artistry, through the process of learning this craft, the first thing you need to do is just learn what to do. So for a first number of years, you're going to be spending these wedding days thinking, where do I need to be? What lens should I be on? What should my light be? What moments do I need to be capturing? All of these kind of logistical and technical things are going to be what's racing through your head throughout the day. As you get more and more experience, that stuff starts to become second nature, and what happens instead is throughout the day, now you have time to think about, well, how can I do this differently? How can I play with the light in this room to create a really cool silhouette of the dress? Or as you're filming couples portraits, yeah, I'm getting all the different couples portraits, but where's that moment? Where's that interaction between the bride and groom that really show me what they mean to each other? Those are the nuances. That's the difference between a documentarian, your run-of-the-mill average videographer, and a true creative artist that is going to create wedding films that make you, the viewer, who maybe doesn't even know this couple, well up with tears or with laughter, with strong emotion, because they are finding those moments in those compositions to really connect you to their story. So let's segue now into the high end. I would consider in the SoCal market anything 3,500 or above as high end, but this market really, there is no cap. You can find videographers that start 6,500, 8,000, 10,000, but anything that's 3,500 or above. And that's because, as we just talked about, the majority of our industry sits at that $2,900-ish range. So if you are even 3,500 or again above, there's a reason why. How are you able to do that? And the reason why is because you are doing well enough at your craft that you are getting enough vendors that you work with to refer you, enough of your past couples to refer you, that you're now able to raise your prices and get out of the volume and get into that higher end, more professional market. So when we say high end, when we say somebody that's charging more than what, you know, the Knot says the average videographer is charging, they're not just luxury. Matter of fact, on our website, nowhere will you find the word luxury. I will not use it, even though we do plenty of beautiful black tie weddings at the highest end venues around Southern California and Italy and stuff like that. We're not high end because we use the word luxury. We're high end because of how we've developed our storytelling, our videography, our craft. So what are you going to see in the high-end market? You're going to see videographers with more than 5 years of experience. You're going to see videographers that have seen it all. You're going to see videographers that come to your wedding with plans and backup plans and backup plans. You're going to see videographers who, no matter what happens on your day, have thought about this ahead of time, have planned out for it, have seen it happen before, and know exactly what to do, not just to salvage moments or to make sure they're getting the scene, but to make sure that they're getting it beautifully and artistically every single time. And that is the value of raising your videography budget, of getting a higher end videographer. It's not just so that you can say, oh, I got a luxury videographer. No, it's so you can get a real pro who's going to knock it out of the park no matter what challenges or differences or unexpected or whatever, no matter what your wedding looks like. It doesn't have to be a perfect wedding for them to give you a perfect film. It could be a wedding where the light is really yellow and gross, or where the toasts end up being really short and there's not a lot of story there, or maybe you're having a mass and so you don't get to do personalized vows. Whatever, you're gonna get a great film, guarantee it. So those three buckets define what are my recommendations, and also how does Amari position itself? How do we position our teams? We'll touch on that in a second, but first, my recommendations. As I touched on already, I cannot recommend enough, maximize your photo and video budget and make sure that they are the same. I absolutely get it. My wife and I, we had not a penny to our name when we got married. I get it, that budgets are all over the place. Whatever your total budget is, maximize the percentage that you give to photo and video, because these are the things that last. And it really does make a difference when you put $1,500 versus $3,000 versus $6,000. So what about Amari? Where do we position ourselves in this market? Now obviously we've been around for a long time, coming up on 10 years next year. But one of the founding principles of our company was not to just be this exclusive husband and wife team that just got more and more expensive over time, we wanted to build a team. And so we've done that. We have an in-house team here at the studio that allows us to bring the expertise and the knowledge and the craft that we've developed over this decade at a much more affordable price. Beyond that, we have principal teams and associate teams, because like we talked about earlier in the film, there's a stage in a videographer's growth where they're not full-blown creative artists yet, but they're pro documentarians. They will go to a wedding and they will get everything and they will do it right, like do it well. It'll look fine, it'll look good. And so recognizing that, as our videographers come on board, they start off, we train them, they will work as assistants for a few weddings and then second shooters for a long time. Once they've shown the consistency of their quality and that they have the critical thinking and leadership skills to lead a team, they will start leading an associate team. Once they've led an associate team for a while and they show that they can bring that extra level of creativity, of artistry, of really spending the day thinking about where's the story, where are the moments, not just, you know, getting everything that's happening, but where are those real important tangible moments, those non-verbals, the body language, little things like that. Once they get to that point, that's when they lead a principal team. So we have associate teams, we have principal teams. We have a small number of teams on staff, which allows us to be even more competitive with our pricing. So yeah, if you are watching this video and you're planning your wedding and you're thinking about videography, which you absolutely should be thinking about videography. If you're still not sure if you need videography, go watch this video right now. You have to watch this video. You have to. Now, if you're planning your own wedding and you still need to book videography, please reach out to us at the link below. I would love to hear a little bit more about your story and what you're looking for in video. And if you're thinking, oh, you're based in SoCal, I'm getting married in Topeka, I would love an excuse to come visit Topeka. I love everyone here in our studio. We love getting to travel for weddings, so please bring us out to Connecticut, to Montreal, to Nova Scotia. I'm listing the most random places. It's late and I need to go home. If you enjoyed this film, please hit that like button, click that subscribe, ring the notification bell so you know every time that we post. If you're in the wedding planning season of your life, you really want to be here, because every week, maybe even more than once a week, we'll see how this goes, you really want to be here. We are posting content to help you as you plan your wedding, as you dream of your wedding, or just if you want to be entertained by some of the things that we see at our weddings. Alright guys, I'm gonna sign off. I need to get out of here. I need to go home. My name's Dave with Amari Productions, and I'll see you next time.